Do you think that Trinidad is ready for another Tobagonian to be leader of the country?
I think this country is ready for a leader.
In an unprecedented all-access interview, regionally renowned journalist and media personality Julian Rogers goes on a one-on-one with a principal figure and one of the most enduring names in Trinidad and Tobago politics and government, leader of the Opposition People's National Movement, Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley.
When I became leader of the PNM in 2010, an application was put in. And that application was for the job of Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago.
Let's talk about your political education. Where did that begin?
My political education began in 1970 when I was a teacher at Arima Government Secondary. And it was the era of the Black Power movement with what was then the university students led by Geddes Granger. And I got very involved in that, largely through a fellow Bishop's High School friend of mine called Anthony McFarlane, who was a student involved in the Sir George William University problem in Canada, where West Indian students were fighting racism. And they came back here educating us about the need to challenge the status quo, because there were certain remnants of the colonial era which had to be challenged. Not meaning to hurt or harm anyone, but meaning to complete the liberation that had come with independence. And I got myself involved in listening to the lectures of these people and actually participating in talking to people about it. And I first spoke to an audience at Jogi Road in Sawa on this issue as an NJAC person. I first spoke to an audience at Jogi Road in Sawa on this issue as an NJAC person. Those of us who believe in the need for change and real meaningful change to open the door for real development and progress, we felt that we had to be on board. And I always felt that if I had a point of view to express in my country, I should be able to express it without fear. And I did that in 1970. We were out speaking on platforms, and we got news that Gordon Grant Hardware was on fire. And we knew, well, that was big trouble. We knew nothing about it, but NJAC would be blamed, and trouble was coming. So we had to stay up all night in a restaurant to make sure that we had a perfect alibi. And the next day, I was at my grandfather's house, and I got a long lecture from my grandfather as to where I was heading. And he virtually instructed me to go back to Trinidad, to my mother's place. They came looking for me. The police came looking for me, but I was in Trinidad, having left there the night before. And I think that scared me. And then a lot of people were picked up and put in, or jailed for that period. And I had to reflect on what was happening. I really wanted to go to university. So that was April, and by October, I was on the campus in Mona. And I never took part in any campus politics.
You were that scared?
I don't think I was scared. I would say I was focused.
But this was also a period of ascendancy in terms of Dr. Eric Williams. His writings, his politics, his policies in terms of government, etc. What impact did that have on you? Did it create at that stage a PNM person? Looking
for this education, I could not help but focus on what Dr. Williams himself had done here in Trinidad and Tobago. And while in 1970, I might have been a young, hot-headed person, I was able at university to read what Dr. Williams wrote and realize that right here in Trinidad and Tobago, we had somebody who understood what I was striving for, which is an understanding of this whole thing. So the Franz Fanon and the C.L.R. James and that kind of writing, Frederick Douglass. And you understand that I didn't have to look too far. And I became a student of Dr. Williams very privately. In 1974, my friend John Scott, who was a geologist, who was kind of mentoring me when I came back here, he was a member of the PNM, a very high-ranking person at the constituency level. And I remember one day we had the normal conversation of politics, and he just got fed up with me and said, listen, I don't want to hear anything from you. I don't want to hear anything else from you. You seem to have all the answers, but you got an education, And if you want to get involved to help, do so, but no more talk. And I was kind of pulled up in that way. And he said, well, why don't you join the party? And I joined the PNM in Tunapuna in 1974. My political education began in 1970 when I was a teacher at Arima Government Secondary. And it was the era of the Black Power movement with what was then the university students led by Geddes Granger. And I got very involved in that. And I first spoke to an audience at Jogi Road in Sawa on this issue as an NJAC person.